And we celebrate, but we also create awareness at the same time. And through art, a wonderful campaign about what human trafficking is and what prevention is what we are planning to do in November 29th.
Participants asked relevant questions regarding issues affecting women and girls. The American Deputy Director of Human Trafficking's mission is to encourage NGOs and government to engage more on supplementary laws already in place to end abuse and protect victims.
We will now take a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Proper policies empower women to enable them participate fully in the development processes. In this regard, the Women's Bureau, in collaboration with UNDP, came together for effective and efficient dissemination of the gender-responsive budget in all sectors. The proper policy empower women to tackle poverty under UNDP's development objective in improving the socio-economic status of vulnerable groups, particularly women and girls in urban, rural, and peri-urban areas, while ensuring participatory planning and improved management of development activities, recognizing the need for focus on enhancing the human capital of the poor. It is in that light the Women's Bureau aims at sensitizing stakeholders on the gender-responsive budget report. The Deputy Speaker and Chairperson of the National Women's Council, Honorable Fatumbai, spoke of the commitment of the Office of the Vice President to use gender-responsive budget assessment report and the Vision 2010-2020 as the main development framework of the country.
There is the need for a coherent, participatory, and multi-sectoral approach to come up with a gender-responsive budget analysis of all government departments and institutions. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there is a clear gender dimension to poverty, as female-headed households are poorer than male-headed households. The poverty headcount ratio for female-headed households being 60.5%, while male-headed stands at 40.7%. The severity of poverty, therefore, has been observed to be greater for women-headed households. Validation of the draft report on GRB has therefore come at the right time to guide policy decisions on gender-related issues in connection to the national budget and other commitments by donors and partners to gender equality, especially in the context of the MDGs, the PAGE, and the Gambia's Vision 2020. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, advocate for gender-responsive budgeting and the allocation of adequate resources and public expenditure for all sectoral programs is critical for the achievement of the goals and objectives of the Gender and Women Empowerment Policy 2010 to 2020. Gender-responsive budget work is about ensuring that government budgets and related policies and programs address the needs and interests of individuals that belong to different social groups. Thus, GRB looks at biases that can arise because a person is male or female, and at the same time considers disadvantage suffered as a result of ethnicity, class, poverty status, geographical location, and age. The fact that GRB is intended to promote mainstreaming of gender perspectives in all policies and programs. To achieve this, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Finance must champion this cause, supported by the Ministry of Women's Affairs. Of course, other line ministries also have responsibilities in relation to their own planning and budgeting processes. The Gender and Women Empowerment Policy, ladies and gentlemen, emphasizes the importance for advocating for law reforms and the enactment of gender-responsive legislation in the Gambia. And I wish to therefore call on all the participants to give maximum attention to the issues that are to be discussed, as it will contribute immensely to the development process.
Madam Bayo also said the gap between female household holders and men should be narrow, particularly a number of issues touched on that are of essential to the work of gender-responsive budget, adding that the validation comes at a time when gender-related issues contest of the MDGs and Vision 2020. Bintu Gassama of Women's Bureau, who deputized the Permanent Secretary, Office of the Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs, said the pronouncement by government to curtail non-priority expenditure to ensure that the key programs aimed at poverty reduction and employment creation are given due priority in a serious step in the right direction.
The government of the Gambia recognizes the importance of macroeconomic policy in shaping women's living standard and their prospects for economic empowerment. Gender budgets are a powerful tool in achieving development objectives, as they reflect gender commitments and can contribute to achieving the objectives of gender equality, human development, and economic efficiency. Madam Chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the draft assessment report that we are about to validate also examines how budgetary processes take into consideration the critical concerns of women and men, as well as issues regarding resource allocation and government spending in the national budget, among others. It also looks at gender-responsive budgeting in relation to the current policy environment, institutional arrangement and planning, budget processes, the stakeholders, and how they can build on a synergy to ensure that GRB, that is gender-responsive budgeting, is mainstreamed in the budgetary process. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Chairperson, the importance of gender-responsive budgeting cannot be overemphasized. This is because to make any program relevant, it has to be linked to a budget. The present realities of the impact of macroeconomic policies on women and men are not quite enough to determine the gender responsiveness of the current budgetary system. Macroeconomic policies can worsen or improve the lives of women and contribute to narrowing or widening gender gaps in income, health, education, and nutrition. It is therefore important for this assessment to take place in order to take stock of the operating environment of the economy, poverty, and gender issues in order to assist in designing an informed GRB program for the Gambia. The final assessment report